think we're going to get started. So a very, very big welcome to Second Nature Software Stormwater Compliance MiniCon for Northern California. Thank you so much to everyone joining us today. I'm Martinette Botha. I'm Senior Marketing Manager for Second Nature Software, and I'm excited to be introducing our presenters today. Seth Brown is the Principal and Founder of Storm and Stream Solutions and the Executive Director of the National Municipal Stormwater Alliance. He's going to be our keynote speaker today. Seth is a registered professional engineer. He has 25 years in the stormwater sector. He also holds a PhD in civil engineering from George Mason University. Francis Kelly is Manager of Global Partner Program at Esri, focused on state and local government. He's going to talk with us today about Esri licenses and how implementation for those work. Francis has been with Esri for about 4 years now, and he actually comes from a former partner of Esri's, and he also had formerly sat on Esri's Partner Advisory Council. Michelle Tanner is Senior Scientist at Second Nature. She's going to be running through a software demo for us today. She uses her expertise in GIS and applied science to help customers integrate software, mobile applications, and GIS analysis into their everyday workflows. She has also played an important role in developing models that can be used for ongoing tracking of green infrastructure. And Jason Yoho is our Second Nature's Chief Commercial Officer. He's responsible for customer relationships at Second Nature. He has spent the last 20 years in Silicon Valley helping customers understand how they can benefit from the cloud. He's going to give us an overview of Second Nature and how to get started with digital, web-based approaches to stormwater management and compliance, and how this innovative approach unlocks the multi-benefits associated with investment in stormwater management and compliance practices. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Please feel free to ask any questions in chat that you might have during the conference. We will endeavor to answer that within chat, or if we don't get to that during the conference, we'll answer that in our Q&A session at the end. And we're going to try and get to everyone's questions, but if we aren't able to, you can contact us directly via email, and we will also try to reach out to you directly after the conference. I've put all the presenters' email addresses in chat for you to see, and I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Seth. Thank you, Seth.
Right. Thanks, Martinette. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off here. And I want to first of all give an overview of the National Municipal Stormwater Alliance, otherwise known as NAMSA, and I'm going to talk about the maturation of the sector, of the MS4 sector, and hopefully that'll kind of kick things off as we kind of get into the other discussions. I do want to thank Second Nature for hosting this, and appreciate being invited to speak, and thanks for everybody showing up and registering and being here. So anyway, so I'm Seth Brown. You can see that's the deal there. If you can go to the next slide, please, Martinette. I'm going to kick this off by talking about, I grew up in a large Catholic family, and maybe that's a redundant statement, but and from a long line of large Catholic families, and whenever, and I was the youngest in my family of 5, and I was the youngest cousin of a huge family. So I spent most of my life, seems, at the little kids table, at Thanksgiving, when we get to grandmas and whatnot. We had cousins that I'd never even met that I'm meeting for the first time with at the table. So, but the point is that I was at that small kids table, and then, you always, as a little kid, you're like, oh, you look at the big table, the adult table. They've got all the nice fine china, and they've got the best food. We've got the little plastic silverware and whatever. So the point I'm trying to make here is that if you can click, I think 2 times, Martinette. Sorry, this is the only place, I think I've only one other place where I've got some kind of, there you go, animation. So I think stormwater has been like, maybe this is me projecting a little bit, but stormwater has been at the little kids table for a long time, and everyone else has been at the, when I say everyone else, drinking water, wastewater, others, transportation, even others, they've been at the big kids table or the adults table. Now it's time for stormwater to make that move, and I want to make that case that that's happening now, and it's going to happen more in the future. So, next slide, please, Martinette. This is one way to think about this. This is information, and this slide is from an opinion piece from William Ruckelshaus, who, if you don't know who he is, or was, I should say, unfortunately passed away within the last year. Actually, he was the first EPA administrator. Was the kind of the grandfather, one of the fathers or grandfathers, whatever you say, of the Clean Water Act. He was the one who helped to write a lot of that up. And then he became a champion for clean water for the rest of his life as well. He actually was the first EPA administrator, and actually the only person who's done this twice. The point is, he's credible. And in 2010, he wrote an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal talking about 40 years since they started writing the Clean Water Act back in 1970. And he said, how have things changed? And he said back in 1970, 85% of our problems, so the blue part of that pie chart, were point source. So we had rivers on fire from wastewater effluent and other kinds of industrial waste, things like that. Very clear, kind of what I call smack yourself in the forehead kind of issues that they weren't small issues, they were huge issues, but they were clear and they demanded action. This is back when you saw the rivers on fire and the Cuyahoga River being on like Time or Life magazine when people read those things. And that made a big impression. That drove things. So he said, this is back in 2010, so this is 10 years old, but it's still very relevant, I think. Fast forward 40 years, and he said, things have, clearly that pie chart has shrunk. We've got fewer, we're in better shape than we were. Clearly our rivers aren't on fire anymore, things like that. But the distribution of our problems is exactly the opposite. So now a majority, 85% of our impairments, our water quality impairments, are from non-point, which, I know that stormwater is regulated. I'm sure there's folks that who know that difference in this call. But we're lumping that all together, non-point, because it was non-point back in 1970 and when the Clean Water Act started. Point is that stormwater and non-point, ag, runoff, all that stuff, that's the majority of the impairments that we have are associated with that. So this, to me, expresses why this is the water quality issue of our time. Urban stormwater, ag, runoff, things like that are harder to get to. We still need to do things on the point source side with wastewater, but we're going beyond. Wastewater is now starting to kind of reclaim resources and energy and things like that. We're still kind of in those early stages, but we're maturing. That's the point here. So next slide, please. And you can go to the next one. I'm just going to give an introduction to NAMSA, just so everyone has some context here, and then I'm going to go back to that kind of theme about maturation, and then I'll wrap up. So NAMSA is the National Municipal Stormwater Alliance, as I mentioned. It's a national coalition of focusing on the MS4 sector. We're the only organization that I know of that focuses only on the MS4s. There's a lot of organizations. Water Environment Federation is a great group. They focus on stormwater as well as wastewater and other things. NAQA and ASFPM. There's a lot of groups out there, but we're solely focused and laser focused on MS4 issues. So that's what we did. We pulled together organizations from across the country. So our members are organizations, not individuals. We've got 3 member types. We've got state and regional groups. So those who represent 5 or more MS4s. That's what an organization is. And then we've got individual MS4s. We just changed our bylaws so that because there are some large MS4s that want to join. And then we have affiliates, anybody else, that wants to join. So those are our members. That's what we're about. And I'll just mention that California, CASCA is, Scott Taylor from CASCA is the chair, and CASCA is a founding member. So California is very central and important to NAMSA. Next slide, please. Why we formed. A lot of it was because we want to have a unified voice. Again, just like stormwater itself is kind of disparate and all over the landscape, that's the way that our sector has been arranged as well. We wanted to bring folks together, provide a unified voice for all these, especially a lot of smaller and mid-sized MS4s who aren't at the table oftentimes. And we've often been reactive when policies come up and whatnot. We want to be both proactive. Sometimes you have to be reactive, but you have to be proactive sometimes. So we want to be driving the conversation and not just responding to things. So that's another motivation for this. We want to connect and unite, form a network between stormwater programs across the country, different state programs and whatnot. This is really a foundational reason that we were born because of this. We want to also promote stormwater runoff and infrastructure as a resource and something that's valued. And we also want to raise the awareness and the public image of stormwater overall. Again, this is a rising issue. It's a rising topic, rising issue, and we want to be the organization that meets that moment. Next slide, please. when we think about the vision for it, it's very simple. We want to provide clean water for the nation, period. How do we do that? We want to help provide efficient and effective programs and that have decisions that are based on science and information. Very, very simple. How that gets done is not as simple, obviously, but that's our vision overall. Next slide, please. And I could go on for a long time here, but I'm not going to do that because we need to move along overall. I'll be happy to answer any other questions on this, but I just want to say these are the 4 action areas that we have. The first is that we, again, we're formed to support the MS4 sector. So providing that sector support information directly to MS4 oriented organizations is what we do. So for instance, I often do give talks at state level events. Indiana, I'm going to be giving a talk to their state level group. I've gone to Casca every year for the last 4 or 5 years at least, if not longer, and been part of conversations. So we engage with MS4 oriented organizations to provide national information as they want. That's part of our messaging and communication. We, again, raising awareness. We're out there working with EPA and on the Hill and other places with other groups, saying, hey, don't forget about stormwater. Oftentimes they say water, wastewater. No, it's got to be water, wastewater, and stormwater is what we really need to talk about. So that's another thing that we're focusing on. There's a lot of things I could talk about as specifics, and I could answer that, or we could have a conversation later on. But these are the main areas. Education is another area. Disseminating technical information. It's something that we've done a little bit of. We need to do more of in the future, but we're going to do more of that. But we've been really active in the policy and advocacy space, working in Capitol Hill on legislative language, specifically engaged with EPA and EPA regional offices as well. So to move things forward. So there's a lot to be said. I'll touch on a little of these as we go along. Next slide, please. Who are we? Again, so we're state, primarily the heart of it are these state and groups like Casca and others. We've got 23 states in our network. We've been around for about 2 years. We were founded in 2016, but we didn't really become IRS approved as a 501c3 till 2018. So we've really been functioning for 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. And we've got almost half the country. So the states that are blue are our members. The states that are green are ones that are, I think, about to become members. So we're about to have 25 total. And then the ones that are red are those that we're talking with right now. So we've got a lot of coverage. It's in 9 of the 10 EPA regions, so it's not all clustered in one area. And like I said, we've got about 10 or 11 affiliate members. 2NDNATURE is right at the top of the list, is one of our close affiliate members, and I appreciate the support that they've given. So and we're growing. So we're always looking for more affiliate members. Next slide, please. And so you can know who the leadership is. Again, I'm the executive director, located here in the Washington, D.C. area. We've got Scott Taylor with Casca as chair. Randy Neprash is from the Minnesota City Stormwater Coalition is the vice chair, and Jennifer Watson with Tennessee Stormwater Association. She is the treasurer right now. So that's and then one more, and I think I'm going to move on to the actual content. I did want to mention we've developed this or launched a couple of centers of excellence. I want to highlight one specifically because there's an opportunity right now for communities to get involved. There is an approach called the community-based public-private partnership, CBP3 type of approach. This is a kind of a new way to drive implementation, reduce costs, make implementation of stormwater faster, more efficient. And this is being done already in places around the country. But we have grant funding available to provide technical support to communities between now and probably the next 2 or 3 months, something like that. For communities who want to learn more about this, want to learn how it can be used for them, maybe even get some procurement documents tailored for them so that they can get that out to the world. So there's a link there. I'm not going to go on about it. There's a link there that to go. It's a very quick application process. It'll take you 10 minutes if that. But we really invite you to do that because applications are due next Wednesday. This is not grant funding available. This is services available directly to communities. So this is not a consultant doing this. This is a community leader has to be engaged. So just as an FYI on that next slide. And I also wanted to give you a value proposition for those who are interested in NAMSA. Either single MS4s can join, like I said, Casca's already a member, but we're always looking for affiliate members. So these are all the reasons that you should consider getting involved, being part of the conversation, being part of these kind of talks, frankly. We've got a lot of resources that are going to grow over time. We just set up our own YouTube channel and all that stuff. And basically the bottom line is you can help us shape the sector. We're still in early days. We can we can have a hand in things. That's pretty exciting, I think, to a lot of people. So anyway, go to the next slide, and then please, Martin, thank you. And then so I call this sector maturation, putting on your big boy pants. I've got a 10-year-old son, so I guess I've been thinking about the big boy pants kind of thing. So the number one thing I'll start with here is the fact that the ASC infrastructure report card is something I bet a lot of you have heard about, and for years they've never had stormwater as part of this. And it's not now, but it's changing this year for the first time. So March 3rd, there's going to be they're going to launch the new 2021. They always have new report cards with new administration. So this administration coming in now is prompting this. And we've been working with the ASCE along with other organizations, but we've really been spearheading a lot of this and saying, hey, you need to get stormwater in there. And they've been saying, yeah, we need to, but it's hard and da-da-da. Well, eventually we convinced them, spent a lot of time. So I give a lot of props to a lot of folks and including Casca was one of the groups that helped us do this. So appreciate it. So this is another data point that says, hey, we're moving forward, we're maturing, we're being seen as being at the big kids table or at the adults table, no longer at the little kids table. So I would invite you to go register for this event. You can hear what's going on and the release of this new report card, and we'll have it, we'll send it out as well when it's ready too. So next slide, please. So related to this is the Water Environment Federation, or WEF. They have a national MS4 needs assessment survey. They've done 2 of these, 2018, and they just finished one last year. NAMS is a supporting organization, and we helped them with getting this out to the world, and I'm sure a lot of you were involved with it. Thank you if you were. And this is the first time there's been any kind of, so now they've done 2 of national surveys of the MS4 sector to ask about what are the challenges and what are the needs. And these are statistically significant, so this isn't asking 4 of them. This is, I think we had 800 some this time. So we've been getting more engagement over time, which is great. That is going to be launched in 2 weeks. So the results are done. The report is done. They're just formatting it. There's going to be a conference for that, or a press conference, I should say, that's going to go over in detail. But we've already found that funding and financing is one of the top needs. Aging infrastructure, evolving regulation. All these things are not surprising, but seeing the details are interesting. Not surprising, but they're interesting. One of the biggest takeaways is that there's an estimated annual funding gap of 8.0 or 8.5. It depends on how you look at it, but about $8 billion annually. That's a huge amount, and that's something that we need to address, and that helps us advocate. This was used by ASCE to do what they needed to do with the infrastructure report card. So if you want to learn more about it, you go to the WEF Stormwater Institute. There's a link that's provided there. Again, in a couple weeks, the week of the 23rd, there's going to be a press conference. We'll send information out on that. But again, this is pretty cool, and it's something that is, again, another data point that a major organization is investing in the MS4 sector. Next slide, please. Okay, so because funding is always a big question mark, we've been pushing in both on Capitol Hill and EPA to look at funding at a national level or a federal level. And long story short, over the last couple of years, finally EPA said, okay, we're going to set up a task force to look at this question. And they've come up with a draft report that they're going to send to Congress in sometime in the next couple of months. But the point is, they've stated specifically more federal funding for stormwater is needed. They recognize that. And there's all these different recommendations, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but the point is that this is a big issue, and we're, again, at the table trying to push this forward along with other organizations, because we know that 95% of funding comes from the local level, and we need to get more funding overall from the national level. So that's a big issue. Martin, I'm gonna break the rules. Can you go back? Okay, if you go back there, thank you. Here, this is Second Nature actually working on a portal with the Water Environment Federation that's going to host all this information. I meant to say this before. It's important because of the context of Second Nature hosting this. You guys should be aware of this. That's going to make this information much more useful. You can go and slice the data any way you want. We don't have the URL set up anyway at this point anyway, but it will be set up soon. I want you guys to be aware that this is not going to be just a static report. This is going to be something that is that's going to be something that you can manipulate. I apologize, Martin. So we can go 2 slides forward. I apologize for that. Thank you. So real quickly, related to funding again, because this is a big issue, it comes up, especially in California with the Prop 218 challenges. State revolving fund dollars, clean water state revolving fund dollars aren't used for stormwater very often. You can see there's information there that shows that less than 3% of SRF assistance for the last 30 years, ever since the program's been around, only 3% has gone to stormwater. So clearly this is not a program that's effective. And in California, I don't think it happens very often as far as the data that I've seen. That being said, stormwater is eligible. There's been legislation back in 2014 that clarified it, even though it should have been clear anyway. But many states just make it difficult because, especially California is one great example. It's hard to set up a stormwater utility. If you don't have a stormwater utility, you can't do financing and repayment, repay on financing, right? This limits our overall, the big takeaway here is that this limits our ability to make large investments over time in the stormwater sector. And that limits what we can do. And the funding needs are absolutely significant in places like California, as well as around the country. So NAMSA has been working with Congress to develop different funding options. So be on the lookout for that. We know that it's a big issue. We're going to continue to be pushing that, but and maybe it's going to be a grant program, maybe it'll be an SRF type of thing. But anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Next slide, please. Okay, fundings and assets. This is one of the biggest things out there. And again, this ties with kind of the theme of I think what we're talking about. And stormwater utilities again in California is very tough to set up. We understand that, and I know that the recent legislation at the state level has addressed that, or changed it to a certain degree, but I still think that there's some questions about legally. So we have to see who's going to be the one, the first group to jump in and deal with those legal issues. But the point is that again, I mentioned 95% of all funding is local. The federal spending, the federal investment is a pretty small amount. That puts the onus on the localities. The localities have to find a way to do this, right? And locally, usually through general funds. Only a quarter to a third of all municipalities have any kind of dedicated source of revenue, like a stormwater utility or stormwater authority. And even if it exists, oftentimes it's underfunded. It's been static for decades or 10 years or even longer. So they can't raise fees and whatnot. So this is an issue, and we're trying to support that. What you see there is a screen capture of a tool that NAMSA is working on with, again, support from Second Nature to develop a statewide or a countrywide map to see like where are all of these, and that's just the start of the larger analysis on this, so we can get our hands wrapped around this and start advocating for our members and other states to address the legislation that they have and to illustrate that there's a big need to change this, because there is no other infrastructure that's got only a quarter or a third of municipalities or whatever customers that have any kind of dedicated funding. So that's very limiting. We want to address that. The next thing is asset management. In this, I mentioned the WEF survey. One of the things that came away from the takeaway from that is that about half of respondents said that they set up some kind of asset management plan. The question is how formal is that asset management plan? I don't know, but the point is that we need to do more of this. There's more that's going on. There's need to be more in the future as well. So that is, that's something that we're specifically focusing on, because having that information is really helpful when you're looking at, again, large scale investments overall. So can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, I did want to tie everything up. This is my last slide, so I'll wrap things up now. And I want to make the point here that data is one of the biggest, we've got a lot of issues. The water sector is data poor. Okay, the stormwater sector is especially data poor, and that's so it's no fault of our own. It's just that, again, we're younger, we're growing up, it's changing. But we don't have a true idea of our existing assets. We don't know. We can't answer a basic question about, like, when we go to Congress, how big is this sector? How much, how many miles of pipe? We can estimate it, but we don't really know. But you go to the transportation sector, they can tell you very specifically how many bridges are there, what's the condition of all of them, because they have a national bridge inventory. They do things in a very consistent, standardized way when they look at their bridges. We don't have that in our sector. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge for us. And so having a data standard for stormwater assets is going to be huge. And I know that Second Nature, as we are working together on this, e-reporting is something that's coming from EPA and state regulators. So I'm really interested in hearing more about this. I think it's a great thing. It's going to help us out in this sector overall. And I'm really happy that we're addressing that issue right now. And because for me, and I'll wrap up here, having a standardized data set as a national organization will allow us to say, we've got this many assets, this many millions of miles of whatever, or this many millions of stormwater BMPs, whatever it is, and it's got this value. And being able to go to a Congress member's office and say, hey, we're going to advocate for this. This is how big this is, a significant and serious infrastructure sector. We need more. We need more, support. We need changes in policies, whatever it is. But if we can't even get our own house together and get our own information together, it's hard to take us seriously. So having a standardized data approach and gathering for stormwater is going to help us out in a big way. So that's it for me. I think I've got just one last slide. And I don't know if there's time to take questions or not, but we can talk. We can do that later if need be. That's my wrap up, Martinette.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Seth. And
Sure.
Keeping on my toes there with the slides as well.
Yeah, sorry about that. I apologize. I meant to make that point, and I had notes, and I blew right past it. So I apologize.
All good. Thank you so much. And just for attendees, if you do want to ask any questions of Seth, please drop it into the chat box. Seth won't be joining us for the Q&A at the end of the conference, and so we'll answer your questions in chat now, or Seth's email address is on that screen as well. Please feel free to reach out to him directly.
Martin, I might be able to stick around, so but anyway.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. That's excellent.
I'll mute myself now so I can listen to Jason.
Okay, perfect. And Jason, over to you.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Martinette. And thank you, Seth. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is really exciting. This is our first Stormwater MiniCon. So that in and of itself is a really exciting thing. I would also add that many of the people that are participating with us today are some of my favorite people. So it's really great to see Seth and Francis and have everyone participating. Lots of ground got covered in that presentation, Seth. That was really fantastic. I'm gonna try and do my part on my section here, but also relate it to some of the things that you mentioned, because so many of them are the things that we hear on a daily basis when we're out talking to customers. And Martinette, I don't know if you have my slides up there, but if you can kind of move to them, that would be awesome. So my name is Jason Yoho. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Second Nature. What that means is I spend almost all of my time working with customers in one capacity or another, whether it's working with Martinette on the marketing side of things, or Michelle on the implementation side of things, or just talking to prospective customers around kind of what's going on in their programs and what are the things that are influencing their decision making. And in particular, how are they considering their ability to demonstrate the effectiveness of their program and report that in their annual report back up to their state regulators. So you know, that's what I want to share a little bit with everyone on the call today about. We're based in Santa Cruz, California. I think that got mentioned somewhere along the line. So you know, very cool little surf town across the mountain from Silicon Valley, where I spent the vast majority of my career. I spent all of my time in Silicon Valley really trying to understand how the cloud can drive benefits for customers. And so I'll kind of chat through what I bring from my background and how I think it relates to Second Nature. I'm at Second Nature because, as Seth said so well, stormwater is a significant contributor to the waterways that we all live around. I have kids. We spend an enormous amount of our time in the water. I'm a horrible surfer. They're pretty good surfers. I'm currently in Truckee, that's why I look all bundled up. And we spend a lot of our time out in the snow and playing around. And I felt and wanted at a personal level to try and find a way that we could kind of start moving the needle and bringing kind of the best that the cloud has to offer into the stormwater industry. I have watched the cloud throughout my career disrupt industry after industry. And disrupt, I mean in a very positive sense of the word. Come in and really start providing and opening up opportunity for industries to embrace things that would be new and drive new efficiencies and really take them places where maybe they didn't consider before. And one of the things that I've observed over the years is that there are several common factors to markets or industries that are ready to be disrupted by the cloud, because I would say that the stormwater industry, and to a larger extent kind of the natural resources management or conservation industry, is one of the last industries that has not yet been fully disrupted by the cloud. I mean, if we think back even just a few short years ago, when we went to our doctor's office, they were still calling around and sending emails and trying to get records from the last office that you were at. By and large, for the most part, you go to the doctor's office now and everything, even if you just came from an appointment early in the week, is usually at their fingertips. Some of the common factors that I think that I see as industries start considering and really getting ready to embrace the cloud is, firstly, that they're going through their own evolution. To Seth's point, they're becoming big kids. Secondly, that there's a lot of fragmentation in their market or their industry in a lot of ways. Just things are kind of scattered about quite a bit. And then thirdly, I would say that there are external factors that are the kind of macro trends that are converging to move things along. And certainly in stormwater, there's a bunch of that. Oftentimes that takes several forms. So compliance, regulatory compliance clearly is one of those. And as the permits evolve and as we see new requirements come in, and really requirements that many of them are looking to try and understand how the permit structure itself can encourage and provide more clear guidance on how to shift programs from being kind of effort-based programs, just kind of doing a lot of things, to being performance-based programs, kind of demonstrating effectiveness. And then external factors as well, like the fact that we happen to have a significant stimulus spending bill coming through Congress, and I'm sure that there will be a significant amount of money going into green stormwater infrastructure over the next short period of time. Our mission on the next slide is at Second Nature is really about understanding how clean stormwater can help drive healthy cities or healthy communities. These are some images we borrowed from the Nature Conservancy, who's also a wonderful partner to Second Nature and an investor. And we really want to start connecting some of those dots. Clearly the stormwater programs spending is significant in the United States, somewhere to the tune of about $50 billion a year. Your programs, of course, you're spending money, and one of the things that we really want to try and help articulate at Second Nature is the ability to communicate a return on investment. That return on investment has a number of different factors associated with it, and I'll kind of talk about a few of them today. But some of those things exist out, those investments, those impacts that we want to see exist outside of the permits. And we'll touch on those a little bit. But maybe first I'll start at the beginning and tell you a little bit about Second Nature and who we are and where we come from. Second Nature was founded in 2016. Nicole Beck, our founder and CEO, is a PhD in aquatic chemistry, and really started her stormwater experience up in the Lake Tahoe Basin, focused on the Keep Tahoe Blue project, which of course is an enormous project, decades long now, that is focused on trying to understand and the lake clarity and what contributes to diminishing lake clarity and what can be done about that. And so Nicole and her team, they were specifically focused on structural BMPs and how those BMPs perform over time and how they contribute to stormwater reduction, stormwater volume reduction, and stormwater pollutant load reduction. That led to a number of models and methodologies that are really at the core, at the center of Second Nature's platform around how we can quantify effectiveness and performance of programs. And so over the last 3 years, we've experienced a lot of success. We're now in 11 states in the US. We're not trying to be everywhere at once. We have a very deliberate plan for how we're rolling out across the country. We have over 50 customers now. That's growing on a weekly basis. One of the things that's different about Second Nature is we think about stormwater programs as assets to their communities, assets that have a long-term value and a return on investment. But of course, our system is also an asset management system. It's an accounting system in many ways. And so we have a very broad set of experience now working with many customers across many states, managing almost 100,000 stormwater assets at this point with a value of over $5 billion. And so that rapid success, I would say, is really based upon three key factors that have contributed to our success. The first is we have a policy of open science. Our science, those methodologies that are at the core of our platform, we publish in what we consider, or we present those as open science in what we consider to be the gold standard. And that's, we publish them in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Secondly, we're based on the cloud. We think that the cloud is the cutting edge of helping our customers break down barriers to understanding their data, turning it into information and communicating it effectively. And thirdly, we're based on maps. We're based on GIS. Seth talked about Esri a little bit. We've got Francis joining us from Esri today. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Esri as we get into the conversation today. Part of our success is we realize that stormwater programs take a number of different stakeholders to make them successful. Second Nature is not a source of disruption. In fact, we consider ourselves a source of risk mitigation. The cloud itself is changing the way that stormwater programs are being run. We come in and try and put a safety net around that, allow you the opportunity to embrace technology, do it in a controlled and very risk mitigated manner. We're going to talk about that a little bit today, but certainly we work with all of the folks that you rely on today to deliver the services for your stormwater program, whether those are in the public sphere or in the private sphere. We have many fine NGO nonprofit partners. We have some fantastic engineering consulting partners. Many of our largest clients around the country are working with some of the biggest engineering firms in the country, down to some of the smallest kind of 1 or 2 person engineering consulting firms as well. So open partnering, open science, and then we're going to talk a little bit today about open data and what that means. At the heart of what we're really talking about at Second Nature is really trying to understand what are the barriers, what are the challenges, what are the fundamental factors that are contributing to either a program very successfully communicating how their program is effective and demonstrating performance, or not. And so I think at the highest level, there are many, it's a complex equation, of course, and some programs are very large and others are not and face different challenges. No one's exactly similar, but generally speaking, what we see is stormwater programs, of course, have grown up over decades now, relying on workflows, relying on information that exists oftentimes in different departments, whether that's public works or maintenance or something else. And what that creates is really a unique challenge, a fragmented challenge for stormwater programs of always struggling to have access to kind of current information, whether that's from an operational standpoint, trying to understand what the priorities are today or this week, or from a business standpoint, trying to understand, where are their performance challenges, effectiveness challenges in the program, and how to make informed decisions around how to deal with those. That complexity, those data silos, if you will, really contribute to significant costs of running stormwater programs. They contribute to significant challenges around trying to get your hands around the effectiveness of your program. And so what Second Nature does on the next slide is we talk about a fundamental shift in how we view a stormwater program. And as I mentioned early, stormwater programs, the resources that go into supporting those programs really are an asset to communities that do have long-term value, that do have an ROI associated with them. And so we embrace cloud technologies, we embrace GIS, and that enables us to start shifting those programs from an effort-based cost center to a performance-based asset system that we can then communicate not just out to the various stakeholders that need services from the stormwater programs, whether that's the maintenance department or whether that's communicating with your public, with the public around how important stormwater is and how well your program is doing, or communicating your effectiveness back up to your state regulator. And we do that by embracing GIS and using GIS as an opportunity to start looking at the data of your stormwater program in a new way, centralizing that data and beginning to harmonize it and standardize it in ways that now make it very accessible, make it very easy to have access to. And we can then roll that up into a variety of different dashboards that we're going to show you today in our demonstration. That can be very informative for driving effectiveness and operations. We rely on Esri significantly. We're going to hear from Francis later. Second Nature is is a very tight partner, obviously, with Esri. We have a deep technical relationship. We have a deep business relationship, and we're highly qualified. We spend a lot of resources making sure that we're very good at taking advantage of Esri's latest technologies and helping our customers take advantage of them in the Second Nature platform as well. I'm going to move towards wrapping up here in the next 2 or 3 minutes, but one of the things that you heard Seth mention is the value of data standards to the stormwater industry. Going back to the beginning of our relationship with Esri, when Esri was just trying to take their network utility solutions and their data management solutions into the stormwater industry, they partnered with us and started designing a data schema, a data standard in conjunction with Second Nature. That has now grown over the last 3 years into a very significant effort. We share information back and forth on a weekly basis. It's a very highly integrated effort. And I'm glad to say that that NAMSA has been a part of this. Randy Niepresh, who you saw his picture earlier, who's a part of NAMSA, he's based in Minnesota and has done a really good job facilitating relationships at the state level between Second Nature and the state of Minnesota, and sharing the new Minnesota state data standard, which we've then shared with Esri. And that model then is a model that we can repeat in various states with various customers, making sure that we're all moving towards kind of a common language for our industry. We don't need everything to be 100% the same. Standards are things that should live, they should evolve, and we want to get to that 80% mark, or as close as we can to that 80% mark where, most of the time we're all talking about things and we have a common understanding using a common language for what those things are. Because we're based on the cloud, because we're based on Esri, one of the fundamental shifts that our customers enjoy is they no longer have to purchase software and install it on a server or put it in a data center. They no longer need to pay support and maintenance fees. They don't need to pay for change orders. A subscription fee, just like most of the software that we all consume at a personal level in our lives, whether that's Netflix or an app on our phone or something like that. It's just subscription fee. It's annually, quarterly, monthly, whatever works for your program. All of the software is then accessed through the desktop on a URL and is highly integrated with Esri's Survey 123 and Collector apps. So very powerful combination of working tools. So then what we do on the next slide is we start building out really views into understanding at the first steps what the stormwater opportunities look like in your communities. Stormwater volume runoff, how much is there? Where does it come from? Based on public information, things we produce very quickly with our customers. Stormwater particulate load and opportunity. Trash and litter is something that's a growing requirement that we see in permits across the country. And then things that exist outside of the permit. How can we relate things from a community standpoint? Where is there an opportunity to use green stormwater infrastructure to create a new park, for example? Where is there an opportunity to take that park and try and locate it in a portion of the community that might be socially or economically disadvantaged? So these types of things then start becoming really more holistic. They pull in other stakeholders to the stormwater conversation at the municipal level that have traditionally not been a part of that conversation. And so to Seth's point, as we start growing up and stormwater becomes big kids, what we want to do is we want to be able to effectively communicate what stormwater is, what the benefit is, and how we can help them be successful in areas that may not exist within kind of the traditional domain of the stormwater permit. And so I'll leave you with this. At Second Nature, we're closely with Esri. We wrap the cloud, we wrap science around kind of our technology, our scientific models and methods, and we provide a system of performance and insight that allows you to understand your needs, communicate them to various stakeholders in ways that they will understand. And that starts opening up not just opportunities to do good things with the stormwater program, but opportunities to get access potentially to other funding mechanisms that maybe have not traditionally been available before. So that's all I have for now. So I'm going to turn it back to Martinette so that Michelle can actually show you what we're all talking about.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. And Michelle, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. That was awesome. And thanks, Martinette. I will be sharing my screen here in a minute, and we can go through a quick demo. Oh, sorry. All right. So like Jason mentioned, our software platform is entirely cloud-based. So that means that you don't have to download any external desktop applications. It's all accessible through a web browser here. And then with our subscription, again, it's all inclusive. You get as many user licenses as you need. We have a big array of different user roles, so you can assign field inspectors, administrators, whatever it might be. Our product is pretty built out, so I'll just be jumping in a few tools today to kind of give you all a pretty good overview of what our software is capable of. So here I've just logged into our software, and you'll see that it's taken us to this main landing page. And so the way that we've developed our software and the way we've kind of broken things out is by different modules. And so each of these modules that I'm highlighting here, these all tie to different stormwater minimum control measures. So you'll recognize structural BMPs, oftentimes called post-construction. We have inspection workflows for active construction sites. So you can use Survey 123 to record any site inspections that you do on a weekly, monthly basis. We have modules for you to record catch basin cleaning. So you can put in different zones where you have your field crews go out and clean catch basins. We have calculators and workflows for you to kind of measure and quantify the effectiveness of your street sweeping program. Obviously, illicit discharge is also a huge important role in stormwater permitting. So we have workflows for you to go out into the field, do your dry weather flow inspections at outfalls. So really, these modules are designed to help you manage your data and then do any field inspections, any kind of day-to-day data management. And then, of course, we have our reporting and kind of analytical and models built into the platform as well. So these right here really are designed to pull in all the data automatically from your data management and inspections. And then because everything is standardized in the Second Nature platform, now we're able to do automated dashboards and create maps and charts and really quick summaries of what you've done for that year. So when it comes time to compile your annual report, it's already done for you in the platform. And you can really just click a button, click submit, and it's sent off to your regulator. So I'll jump into our structural BMP tool here to kind of give you a good overview of how the software functions. So I'll turn off a few layers first to kind of orient everyone. So what you'll notice throughout our platform is that everything is very map centric. You know, everything has a geolocation. Again, we're an Esri business partner, so we can pull data really easily from ArcGIS Online. We can push our results back out to ArcGIS dashboards or hub pages. And so the beginnings of creating your account in Second Nature is you get to work with us, and we pull in different GIS data sets related to your stormwater program. So here, this is an example city in California, city of Watsonville in the Monterey Bay here. And what we've done is we've taken their MS4 permit boundary in GIS. We've taken their mapped outfalls, put those as points on a map here. They had their storm drain pipes mapped in GIS, so we put those on a map as well. And then we actually take all of those along with local topography, and we help our clients delineate drainages within their city. So here you can see on this left-hand side is a table of all the different sub-watersheds within their city and how it's broken out and divided across. So here you can see that we've helped them delineate different drainages within their city. Immediately we can see the linkage between their urban landscape and how it's flowing into all of their receiving waters and streams throughout the city. So I'll turn a few of these off first. So now that we have that baseline set, then we can start to layer different data layers on top. So whether it be structural BMPs or construction sites, we can start to do analytics on these drainages. So if I turn on the structural BMP layer here, what this is showing basically is all of those stormwater assets that you are responsible for, whether it be private structures on private land due to redevelopment projects, or maybe it's a publicly owned asset, a basin that you have to maintain on an annual basis. All of that we can either pull in GIS data sets, again, from ArcGIS Online. We can display it on a map here, do some analytics, you can record your inspections, and then we can push it back out to Esri, which is. So if I click on an asset here, a pop-up will show up. And what we've done is really, and I think Jason, you touched on this a little bit, but really worked with Esri to develop a stormwater data standard. So I'll jump into here in a minute, but basically we have a full inventory of all of these structural BMPs, what you should be recording for each one. We have tools for you to actually draw drainage areas for these structures. Again, it all gets saved to GIS layer in the cloud, so you're not having to transcribe field data sheets or do any kind of file management in an external system. So if I open up the inventory here, what you'll see is with our software, we can load in other data sets relevant to your MS4. So here we have their parcel data in our platform. If we drop a point on a map, it can automatically pull in the parcel APN or unique identifier. We can calculate street addresses, latitudes and longitudes. And then we can associate these structural BMPs with redevelopment projects that are happening within your MS4. And then if I click next, here is our pretty comprehensive data schema and data standard. So I think we mentioned this a little bit, but we've worked a lot in the Lake Tahoe Basin, understanding how structural BMPs perform and degrade over time. So with our subscription is not only just the tool on how to use the inspection forms and the tools to manage your data, but it also comes with our data standard and our protocols and definitions and everything that you need to kind of get ready to centralize your data into the cloud. So these types right here, these are all of our standard BMP types, and they're all very clearly defined by how they treat stormwater. So whether it's through infiltration or particle capture, it's going to be modeled differently in our software. And we'll get to how that gets incorporated in a minute. But right here, for an example, we're looking at a bioretention. We can see that it's on a public parcel. We've recorded inlets and outlets. We can even see how it was designed. So here we can see it's treating the 24-hour 85th percentile storm. And then the cool thing about this too is that we can attach files. So oftentimes you have operations and maintenance agreements, design plans that are scattered about. So this provides you with a pretty easy centralized location where you can drop your files in here. So if you have third-party inspectors or interns that are going out and assessing these, they can look at these plans as a reference. And then we have pretty cool tools built into the platform here where you can actually use our GIS drawing tools to delineate drainage areas to these BMPs. So if you want to model how much sediment or how much volume we think that these structural BMPs are reducing, we have to know generally how much area it's treating. So here I can actually draw, if it treats this neighborhood here, I can use the design standards as a reference, or design plans rather, draw the polygon in the platform here, and it automatically calculates the area for me. And then you can see it has the impervious area treated. We can pull that from publicly available data sets as well. And now if I hit save and close, this polygon here, the drainage area, will become automatically updated into its own GIS layer where we can do additional analytics on top of it. So now this map, what this is showing basically is we have all of your assets in a GIS location. Everything's been standardized. We know exactly what type it is, how it's treating stormwater. We know the drainage area. I can even show that on a map here. But the next really important thing that we need to record is how well is it performing stormwater? Does it need maintenance? When was the last time interns or the field crew went out and maintained the vegetation in this BMP? So again, part of our software is not only the tools to record all of this, but also the field assessment protocols. So again, we've worked a lot in Lake Tahoe Basin, developing these really rapid field assessments that are specifically tied to the BMP type. So for a bioretention, we're looking at how fast it can infiltrate water, making sure that it has that ponding depth to treat particles, making sure that the substrate isn't becoming compacted or anything like that. So all of these field protocols are available on mobile devices. So again, don't need to download another application. You can just go to your web browser on your iPad or your field device, whatever it is, and it works. And so I'll add in a test inspection here. And basically what we've done with our assessments is that we have these really rapid field assessments, making sure that the important parts of the structure are working. And then we've developed a scoring method. So score between 0 and 5. Basically 5 means that it's performing really well. Maybe you just did maintenance or it's brand new and it was just installed. So if I hit this calculate score here, it looks like it's a score of 4.5 or 4.4 rather. So that flags the structure as we just did maintenance, it's performing well, we can feel confident that it's going to treat the amount of stormwater in its drainage area. So if I hit save here, again, this all gets saved automatically in the cloud. No need to transcribe any data sheets when you get back to the office. It's immediately saved right here for your record. And if we take any photos in the field as well, we can view that in the application here. So I can see that people have previously taken photos in the field. They're time-stamped, associated with the structure. You can even add captions if we would like to. So really just centralizing all of your data associated with these structures. Now, if you look at this map, you can see it's a lot of colors, a lot of points going on. So we've actually taken this one step further and developed these to-do lists. So here, if I go to the to-do tab here and then click on this maintenance due, Basically what this is doing is filtering and querying your data, showing you which are your top maintenance priorities. So here, if I click on this structure, this is your top structural BMP in your maintenance due list. We can see that it treats about 55 acres, but it has a score of 2.5. So right away, that's flagged for maintenance. You know, the most recent inspection was done, something's up, maybe the vegetation is dying or an inlet is clogged. So we can push this to your work order software. You can let your public works know, hey, this is a priority. This has really high water quality benefit, and yet it's performing poorly. If we scroll down to the bottom of the maintenance due list, we can see here it's a bioswale. It treats, you know, less than an acre. Obviously, still important green infrastructure, but on the relative to-do list for your maintenance crew, it's probably going to be a lower priority than this wet basin that treats 55 acres. So really easily providing insights to your maintenance crew, to your assessment crew on how you can get the most bang for your time, basically, in the field. So that's our kind of structural BMP inspection tools. Again, we also have these data management and inspection tools for other minimum control measures in your permit, such as construction, illicit discharge, municipal maintenance. But I'll actually jump to our annual reporting tool here to show you more of how we can do our modeling and analytics and really summarize your data for you. So here I'm now on the annual reporting part of our platform. You can see that we have two different sections, program impact and program compliance. So what the program compliance does here is that we summarize all of the inspections that you've done for each of these minimum control measures, how many new assets you've inventoried, how many assessments you've done, and give you a quick status here. If we click into one of these, it'll show you a summary map with a table, and that's something that you can easily put in your annual report. It's already done for you in the platform. You don't have to spend time in Excel or Access, you know, trying to query your data. And this program impact here, this is where we can do a lot of our advanced analytics and modeling on the performance of your program. So if I go into particulate reduction here, built into our software is, again, not only the tools to inventory and assess all of your structures and sites, but we also have a hydrologic model built into the software. So here we've taken local soil, we have local rainfall, impervious data, land use information, and we can combine all that together to estimate what we're calling baseline particulate loads and baseline stormwater volume runoff. So if I go over to this opportunity tab here, what we've done is using those data sets that are automatically pulled into the platform, we can estimate on an average scale how much particulates or how much stormwater volume we think is running off the surface into those receiving waters. So here we can see in the city of Watsonville, they have about 2,868 acre feet per year of water running off the surface of their MS4 going into the Watsonville Slough or the Stroop Slough. And what we've done is actually aggregate that data to the drainages that we've delineated and then colored them by their relative runoff rate. So the dark blue areas here are the drainages that are your high priority. These have the highest amounts of stormwater runoff. These are areas that you should implement green infrastructure, do education and outreach, whatever it might be. And again, we can do the same thing for particulates here, looking at particulate loads. Dark brown areas, again, are those high priority areas where we want to focus any new implementation. Now, going back to the structural BMP tool, like I said, we know now where the structural BMPs are, we know their drainage areas, we know how they treat water, whether it's through infiltration or particle capture. So we can actually include those structural BMPs in this model and estimate average particulate reductions from those BMPs. So if I go over to this progress map here, what this is showing is basically the inverse of that opportunity map. So now with structures and BMPs in place, the dark brown areas are those drainages where you have the highest implementation of, say, street sweeping or runoff disconnection, structural BMPs. So here, if I click on this, we can see that they've reduced their particulate load by almost 70%, which is quite a bit. And because everything's tied to that geolocation, it's on a very small spatial scale, we can actually take this down one more notch and start to look at individual receiving waters. So here, the Watsonville Slough, if you're not familiar, it's a highly impaired water body. It's got a few TMDLs. So we can start to kind of look through and see what we've done in the Watsonville Slough drainage area. So here we can see that these dark brown areas, this catchment, we've reduced its particulate load by almost 46%. And we have breakdowns here. Now, say you are using our software and you want to implement a lot of green infrastructure, do some public education, improve your street sweeping program. So now we can actually track your program's progress over time. So as you add new structures, whatever it might be, that will get recorded and time-stamped in the platform. And then we can track your program's progress in a time series. So what this is looking at is, again, that same Watsonville Slough drainage. And over time, we can see as you've implemented new structures, new assets, you've reduced your pollutant load even more. So this is a really easy way for you to kind of tie it to any water quality reduction goals that you have in your permit. It all gets saved here. And again, all of our methodology on how we do our modeling has been peer reviewed in scientific journals. And again, available on our website if you're interested. And I think with that, I will pause. And if you have any questions about our software, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll try to respond. And I know we'll have some time at the end of the webinar for any Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah.
Really comprehensive software demo as per usual. And I've just dropped a link into the chat as well for anyone who wants to request a one-on-one software demo with Second Nature. You can follow that link. All right, and with that, I am going to turn it over to Francis from Esri.
Hey, thanks, Martinette. I wanted to stop for a second and thank Martinette for her being adult supervision for everyone today, because I know it's not an easy job. So Martinette, thank you so much. You're doing a great job and bringing us together. For the folks attending the MiniCon today, of course, as luck would have it, my dog has been quiet for the entire afternoon. And once I get on to present to everyone, of course, somebody would be walking past the house. So welcome to my home. Welcome to my home in Boulder, Colorado. As Martinette was so kind to introduce me, my name is Francis. I work with Esri's partner organization. I work with both our program level at a global level, but also with our state and local government partners, of which the folks at Second Nature are a really important partner to us. Now at Esri, we have a large partner program. And before I begin to talk about licensing and kind of the things that we do, Second Nature and Esri share a really interesting commonality. And I was listening to a TED Talk with our president and founder, Jack Dangermond, yesterday morning. And he talked a lot about the initial years and the initial successes of Esri and where they took this geospatial science, and they were really a services organization. And as they iterated on those services, that kind of defined what we now know as ArcGIS. And that same thing is true for Second Nature. The folks at Second Nature, they used science backed in peer review, and they kind of expressed that science in a platform. And as they iterated, they found that they had a real great product to go to market with Esri, and they chose us. And they actually were selected for our startup program. They navigated that program where we provided them with kind of some infrastructure and some scaffolding in terms of our product and some direction. But really it was that energy matching that caused Second Nature to come out with such a great product that establishes us and really in so many ways, as Seth mentioned earlier, moves us and has that opportunity to move us from the kids table up to the adult table. So with that, let's get started. My next slide really talks about who Esri is. And I really wanted to make sure the folks on the phone understood that while Esri is a leader in a 51.5-year-old, we're almost 52-year-old companies, that we have lots of offices worldwide. But as we double click on this big company called Esri, we keep double clicking. We go from global to national to regional. So right in your area in Northern California, we have an office in Sacramento. We have our headquarters office down in Redlands, California. Our president and founder, Jack Dangerman, his wife, Laura, still show up to work every day, and they're very active, engaged leaders. And as I mentioned, I was just listening to a TED Talk yesterday with Jack, and then I followed up that this morning as he presented to our CIO Summit for state and local government. So while we are big, we do have that very close connect and tight interaction with our customers at any level of any size organization. And I think that's what really benefits us, is that we go right down to that customer, because Jack always believes that whether it's through our partners or direct, that our customers are our most important asset. So as we move to the next slide and we go from talking about who we are, we kind of say, what do we kind of do, and kind of by the numbers. And I think many of you in the year that has passed, if we go from February to February 2020 to 2021, it's been a very interesting year. And a lot of folks have got to know us a lot better because of the COVID dashboards that Johns Hopkins put out. And those are based in ArcGIS, and they're hosted on ArcGIS Online. And that's that very same platform that the folks at Second Nature leverage to bring you product and bring you their service offering. So if you look here by the numbers, our software is used by almost all of the Fortune 100 and over half of the Fortune 5. So all of 50 US state governments, all the most populous cities use Esri in some way. And then when you look at all the folks in the Forbes top 100, we're in 87 of those. But I think one of the smallest number of words on our bullets is we spend, kind of like Second Nature spends, we spend 30% of our revenue back into research and development to make products better, services better, and make outcomes better for our partners and for our customers who leverage our software. Something that not a lot of people know, Esri, as far as our ArcGIS Online platform, as we talk about this every day, we're second only to Netflix in CPU usage in the cloud. So think about that in terms of just plain usage of our mapping and location and our living atlas of the world. That shows you kind of two things. There's great importance and value people are putting on mapping and location, and you're looking at a partner of Esri who's chosen a really good partnership to go after with using our geospatial infrastructure. As we move on to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about Esri, who we serve, right? We kind of serve all aspects of an organization, from that person who's doing the work and developing the outcomes and really coding, all the way up to that executive who needs to see an operational dashboard, maybe how their performance of their MS4 regulations are going, and maybe just be able to view that. But then we have all sorts of a palette of ways for customers to interact with mapping and location. So we serve across the gamut of customers, and really, as we look at the next slide, when we think about all of our influence we have, then we say, okay, what about all of these industries and these business needs to serve those industries? And I found it really interesting, because as you think about and reflect on Seth's talk with this importance of a data standard that's going to move us from the concept of being, hey, we're at the kids table, we really need to be at the adult table because this matters. It matters more than just saying, hey, we have assets. No, these are stormwater assets. They have a life, they have a livelihood, and we need to understand what they're doing, how they're acting, and how they're behaving. So when I looked at our industries and business needs, I wanted to kind of focus us and focus our thinking around this business need, today's needs, as we talked about today, in asset and tracking and analysis, really looking at situational analysis, sometimes real-time location tracking. Those business today's needs we can solve with the Second Nature offering coupled with Esri. And then these things with tomorrow's opportunities, I kind of teased out some things that we're doing with Second Nature today, because you can look at site analysis and territory planning, right? You can analyze that site, how you're doing in your compliance in or out, and really understand that risk management and overall see that operational efficiency for your stormwater program. So when I saw our slide deck and I kind of thought about the presentation that Seth and Jason, and then that great demo that Michelle gave us, I looked at these business needs, and we're solving some really compelling business needs for you today and those tomorrow's opportunities. So as we go on to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about really when we look at our technology, you're really choosing a best-in-class partner who's leveraging these geospatial capabilities in their solution for you to use. And I often look at Second Nature as taking that first step for you, that user, from that maybe a little bit of manual intervention and manually tracking to something that's more digital in nature. And to do that, you have to not only leverage capabilities, but you need to bring those forward in a way that makes it easy for the customer to use, and for you folks out there to say, hey, I can bring my data in, I can access that data, I can analyze it, and then I can report it out to my community. So if you look at the technology offering, our technology offerings are certainly deep and wide, but you have a partner in Second Nature who's choosing those capabilities based on their knowledge of the science, and they're taking those out of really our a la carte menu and providing those to you, the customer. So on our next slide, we'll talk about, I think, a little bit about where we do our business here at Esri, and as far as our data and location services. We literally spend millions and millions and millions of dollars each year on really creating great outcomes to give you data to make more informed decisions. And those could be demographics, environmental data feeds, be those public or private, base maps and imagery, because in some of the worlds that you're looking at, you might want to have that most recent imagery. And we're seeing a lot more imagery, and the price and the investment of imagery come down, and we're providing that in our living atlas of the world that customers have access to. And of course, location services. More and more companies want geocoding, geo-enrichment, routing, location-based services, and those all can be and will be leveraged by Second Nature to afford those to you, the customer. So if we move to the next slide, where we hit and where our markets are, GIS has been that geographic information systems. That is the cornerstone of what Esri does every day. This is what we do, is GIS. And out of GIS, we have this concept of mapping and location intelligence. And if you look at some of the reports that have come out of Forrester, and they talk a lot about this abstraction of this, taking this investment that we've made in the foundation and the system of record and making sure we have location intelligence. And a lot of the times when I talk about this, we talk GIS with that person that we might first work with because they need to figure out where their BMPs are, what's out in the field, and that's real GIS. And then they might provide that outcome as a map and maybe some location intelligence. And that might look like a level of deep understanding and then some abstraction of that same understanding. And those are the markets we serve, but how I see Second Nature kind of revealing from that very low level GIS all the way up through location intelligence. So on our next slide, I think we talk a little bit about our business model, and this kind of gets us down the road to where really you want to make an informed decision about where you start and where you go on your journey when it comes to stormwater. And I think the way that we've matched energy with Second Nature has really given us some good thinking around this subject. So our customers buy ArcGIS. We're a software company, so they can buy enterprise agreements, they can buy industry bundles, or they can buy products. And the reason why I bring that up is that Esri is a software company. That's what we do every day, and we engage our partners for them to provide best-in-class solutions, whether those are, a point solution hosted in the cloud or something that's coupled with our enterprise agreements. And I want you to know that Second Nature has been able to navigate all of those different models with Esri. My job today is not to confuse you with our business models. Just know that the flexibility is there for you to start and grow and graduate and develop into wherever that journey might take you, from stormwater all the way through the next and the next, wherever that vision might take you. And of course, we have a full portfolio of services, managed services, consulting, training, and e-learning, but we really look through our partners' lens to provide that to customers in the subset that you're looking at. So on our next slide, I really start to draw out a slide I just kind of dropped in this morning. Martinette was like, Francis, I really need your slides. And honestly, I was hesitant in bringing this slide up, but the reason why I did is because of the kind of thinking that we've had already today. And when you think about GIS, we think about GIS in providing a process and a framework for creating and applying geographic knowledge widely. And when I looked at this specific slide, as we look all the way over to the right here at measurement, at the beginning of your journey, you want to get things out and you want to measure those assets. You want to visualize and map those assets in the field, like Michelle had shown in the demo. You want to provide some analysis and modeling, and maybe some intermediate planning and design, because there might be some things we need to respond to, or maybe things we need to react to, depending on where we are with those assets. And that's going to inform better decision making and then action. And that action could be redoing something, remaking something, reassessing something, or reporting something out to the community. So I felt like this slide really spoke to me in a way that I could actually kind of speak to you folks, as you know your work in the field and what you have to do. And I actually kind of captured something from Jack's talk this morning I wanted to share with you, is that understanding precedes action. And that's kind of what we want here. We want understanding, action, and then communication as we look at MS4 permit holders. And really that starts with a data model to bring it all together. And Second Nature depends on a data model from Esri and works with us to kind of provide input and direction, and that comes from the community as well. So you're really starting at the right place, whatever time that might be. And what I mean by that is if you choose a Second Nature hosted solution, you're starting out right because you're using that data model. If you start out with a say a full use license of Esri's and to inform from Second Nature, you've started out right because you're starting out with that same data model. And that's why I wanted to kind of take a time out and show this slide, is because that's where Second Nature, Esri, and the community are coming together to ensure and inform that. We simply can provide that foundation for you folks to work on, play in, and find information from, to go ahead and inform that data standard. And I think that's where we come together as a commercial organization with Second Nature, as a platform software company like Esri, and then really the community to come in and say, hey, this is what good looks like. As we said today, 80 to 82% might be good enough. We're all speaking the same language and we can move that ball forward. So I really, kind of from a really emotive perspective, wanted to share this slide with everyone. And if we go to the next slide, I think I'm still on time. I just wanted to make sure that you folks knew as we go to market, as partners go to market with Esri, and we can show that next slide. The good news is we work well together with partners like Second Nature, who have proven to sustain a really solid behavior in not only keeping with our technology, but informing us of what the community wants out of our technology, because they're using it and leveraging it at Second Nature, but also they're saying, hey, we've got some really good things coming back from the field. So we want to work together with partners that provide that kind of energy matching. If we go to the next slide, we work with large organizations and large partners who just simply market and sell with Esri teams. If there's a large organization or a large community who just says, hey, we have these Esri components, we just need your components coupled with that, we can market and sell with Esri teams. And we've empowered Second Nature to do that today. And the next slide, we talk about really where you are today with the product and solution delivery licensing. And this means that quite simply that Second Nature has an agreement and a relationship with Esri where they can license and sublicense capabilities to provide an MS4 solution to the community. And that's really solution delivery licensing. Again, not wanting to get you folks too kind of into our world, but wanting you to know that have comfort in the decision you're making, because any one of those is going to be the right one because it's based in this solid data model. It has feedback back into Esri, and you can kind of take that journey with us. And then in our next slide, we talk about this concept of bundling. There are some customers of ours, some prospects who say, well, I love this MS4 compliance that Second Nature has for my problem, but really I think I need like a full license capability of Esri, and therefore can you, Second Nature, come and bundle those two things together? The answer is yes, and that's why, again, I think I've been asked to come on because I love these guys. I'm really good friends, and they're a partner in force for us. But we've engaged Second Nature in a way that allows them to really go to market arm in arm with Esri and be able to solve those problems for you today, tomorrow, and well into the future as you look at your vision for MS4 compliance, where you want to go with your data, where you want to go with your assets, and really bringing that up. It's a very good starting place. And from my perspective, being partnered with Second Nature, knowing that they have science-backed peer review, really smart kids working on our platform and delivering you guys a best-in-breed solution. So I think that was my last slide, Martinette. If we go to that last slide, I think at Esri, we talk about the science of where, and then we talk about the knowledge of next. And at the beginning of last year, we went out big and we talked about see what others can't. And if you kind of put those three things together, that's really what we're talking about today. We want to take the science of location, so we prepare you for the knowledge of next, because this is what stormwater is. We're talking about the knowledge of now and the knowledge of next. And because it's stormwater, we want to report out to our constituents, be they community or regulatory. We want them to see what others can't and understand and appreciate what we're doing for our stormwater services today and what for our community tomorrow. So again, thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate Martinet for being our adult supervision. I respect the heck out of Seth and the work that he's doing for MS4 compliance. Jason and I talk almost daily, so I'm sure he'll be critiquing my slide deck today. And really thanks to Michelle for kind of putting it all together and making sure we knew what to expect from and for a user of the system. So thanks so much, everyone. Continue to be safe, and I look forward to supporting your needs in the future.
Thank you so much, Francis. That was great. And you can actually stay on our screen, because I'm going to hand it over to you and to Jason and Michelle to chat a bit about how to get started with such a digital approach to stormwater management and compliance. Alrighty, so over to you guys.
Hey, Seth, thanks for sticking around as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, so Francis, that was awesome. I will send you my critique later, but you did a wonderful job. Seriously, it was great. Also, I want to echo what you said when you started, which is thank you to Martinet for making this happen. This is our first mini stormwater conference. It's been very exciting. I think the content was outstanding. We're not. The idea here is really for us as a group to try and share our collective experiences and give everybody a sense for what we see happening, what are some of the reasons behind that, where we're investing as organizations in trying to help facilitate some of the change and opportunity that's occurring in stormwater right now. So, and then I also want to thank all of you for joining. This has been great. I know it's not easy to carve out the time to do this type of thing, although I would say I think we're all doing more of these things clearly with COVID. So I think we were all pretty polished, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about, often where questions go when we sit down is kind of the starting place, right? How do we get going? And it's an important question, not just from a practical sense, but also because the theme that Seth really kicked us off with, and I think carried out through the conversation, is that the stormwater industry is going through a transformation right now. It's evolving, right? And part of moving forward in given the kind of that reality is that there's change involved, and change can be a little bit scary for sure. So whether you're a small municipality and you've got one or two or a small number of people working on your stormwater program, or you're a very large city with dozens and dozens of people, that question of change still represents an element of risk. And one of the things that I think that we've learned and that we've really gotten comfortable talking about is what does that risk really mean? And I think that it can be paralyzing for sure, right? It can be a little bit overwhelming. Change can be that way in all areas of life. But what we've come to really hone in on is don't be afraid of risk, mitigate it. And so we talked a lot about data today, for example, and I've got a couple more slides where we can talk about data more specifically. But and I think that's a great starting point for this conversation, because it's often the starting point for the permit holders, the permittees that we're working with as they're thinking through this. It's often they classify it as, well, my data might not just be ready to do something useful with it. Do you know what I mean? So maybe I've just got to focus on my data a little bit more before I can transition over and start doing something different. And I think both from a NAMSA standpoint, Seth, you've got a very broad kind of view into that. And then clearly, Michelle's dealing with this on a daily basis with us, and Esri, of course, in a lot of ways is our partner in that. right? So I think that's maybe the first thing that I'd like to just key up for us to all talk about is how can we help our customers and how we help permit holders, Seth, think about mitigating risk from a data perspective and getting over that fear of just not being ready to make to move forward.
Can I address that real quickly, Jason?
Yeah, please.
So I think it's a great question, and I think that something that you hear a lot, I think, from the MS4 sector is there's, because of the unique nature of the MEP, maximum extent practicable with from a permitting standpoint, oftentimes, there's a love-hate relationship with this, which is, hey, we love the fact that it's ambiguous and not clear and not measured easily, but we also hate it because we never know if we're actually making progress. So I think that it depends where you're coming from. It's interesting. One of the things that that's tied to this, I think, is in the I mentioned the WEF MS4 national survey, right? That's going to be coming out in a couple of weeks. One of a question that we didn't have in 2018, and again, I recognize Second Nature is working on that, and I appreciate, and you guys step up when others don't, and I appreciate that. One of the interesting things, and people can look at this, a question that was not in 2018 that's in 2020 is, I can't remember exactly the wording, I don't have it in front of me, but it basically boils down to this: yes, no, or unsure are the answers. The question is the federal stormwater program effective at making, addressing the goals of the Clean Water Act, right? And I'd be kind of curious, what do you guys think the answers were? I can tell you what they were generally, but what do you think? So again, the question is the federal stormwater program, is it effective at meeting this? Has it been effective, or is it currently effective at meeting the goals of the Clean Water Act? What do you think the answers were? And I'm setting up a point here.
Well, I mean, I have a good sense that it's unsure is the answer.
You think that's the dominant one? What do you think, Michelle? You deal with MS4s all the time. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, my vote is definitely that unsure.
You think so? Francis, you have any thoughts, or you just not in your world enough?
I did not prepare for this quiz.
I didn't even put you on the spot. This is funny.
My guess would be that overall it's probably not meeting, right? It's not meeting expectations.
And it's interesting because the answer just globally, and I'm not trying to get out ahead of what the report they're going to release because there's a lot of details, and I'll just say generally, it was like a third. So clearly there's no consensus.
Right.
And it varied regionally, and it seemed like honestly, the larger programs, phase ones, were actually less confident, which to me, they're the ones doing more monitoring. They're doing a lot more, so they're the ones actually seeing, once they measure things, which is kind of what my point about data. Once you start measuring things, you realize, oh, wow, we want to make progress. We're not making progress. We need to start doing that. And so that's my point, and and so I guess the overall theme in my rambling here is, I think we should not be afraid of data. And the MS4 sector sometimes is afraid of, like, oh God, if you measure it, I might get stuck with it. The flip side of that is, if you don't measure it, then how do you know you're making progress? And how do you adapt?
And Seth, you mentioned something really key there, is that facts are friendly even if they stink, right? So even if you get started, because then you have a baseline, right? I had a CEO a long time ago. He said, the facts are friendly even when they stink. He used a different word for it, but I mean that's the thing. Like, you could see yourself in lack of analysis paralysis, just taking that first step to say, let's just get that initial understanding of our assets, just a baseline, and then say, okay, if this isn't what good looks like, well, it gives us at least that starting point, right? And that's what sometimes I sense people just don't know. It's like, well, if you're going to keep revving your engine, you're never going to get anywhere, right? And that's the challenge that I see in the space and place for these guys.
And Michelle, as you're out talking to permit holders every day, is anyone's data ready? Is there such a thing?
I would argue no. Yeah, I mean, it's.
But not as a criticism, just that's the nature of it, right?
Yeah, that's just the nature of the game, and as these data standards develop, as technology develops, yeah, your data is gonna change over time. And I think Esri, GIS, Second Nature, we all have easy platforms for you to get started with adding inventory, doing your assessments, and we can always update and improve your data set as we move forward using these tools.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I would say, just as a closing thought on this topic, that part of the nature of data never being really ready is because it's always evolving, right? It's always being added to. And so part of, minimizing data risk is realizing that improved data integrity often comes from everyone's point, start someplace and then just make the data better as you go, right? And that's how we move the needle. And the inverse also applies, which is, if you don't really address kind of what you're collecting and how you're collecting, and you're just kind of adding to your data integrity decreases in those types of circumstances. So thank you. That's a really good topic. I've got just a couple more that I think are worth touching on. The next one is really, the next slide, Martinette, is about the idea of fitness. If you have that slide there, or maybe you should have it. Do you have that one there?
Yeah, that's what it says there.
There we go.
Yep.
This is an interesting, generally speaking, what we often see in markets in industries where the cloud and associated technologies with the cloud, GIS in this case, are coming in and presenting a platform really for things to be done under a new paradigm. What we see is a very rapid transition away from kind of many old ways of doing things, including kind of building highly customized systems from the ground up. Lots of reasons, many of them very obvious for that. But one of the things that we often talk about from a starting point is consider fitness. Consider fitness from a science standpoint. Nicole, our founder and CEO, often says, make sure that the solution fits the problem from the beginning, right? And if we're interested in measuring effectiveness or performance of programs towards reducing volume or sediment or pollution, then start with a system and a methodology and modeling that was designed to meet that problem. So we often want to start there. Secondly, if we're talking, stormwater is obviously distributed, right? It's distributed in the earth. These are distributed infrastructures, distributed architectures. So maps in this case are just a no-brainer. Maps matter, right? So again, it's the proper solution for the problem. And then
it's really the common language you're talking about, really, Jason. Maps provide that common language for us all to speak to. And when Jack talks about this concept of hey, a configure first mentality and a point solution, but then this concept of a system of systems, right? As Jason talks about, maps are that common language. There is a place in the space, if we think about this data standard, where you can influence and share that when the time is right. Your data, your in and out of compliance, all those things can be shared in that common geospatial infrastructure. And that's something that Esri truly believes in, that we have the cloud today, the performance is there, and the connectivity between groups under management. And as Michelle and Jason nod in the right way at that, I'm actually being intelligent for a moment, that really it's that common language, that common interface that we can use across these different organizations to kind of draw together that standard and kind of come together as a community of communities for the right time, for the right place at the right time.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I totally agree with that. And what I would add to that is, when we've taken our science and we've taken maps and we've put those together into the cloud, really the next step is then, well, how does that thing get, implemented? How does it get represented? What does that platform really look like? And the structure behind the Second Nature platform is the stormwater permit, right? And that's what you saw when you looked at the demo that Michelle provided for us. That was outstanding, Michelle. Thank you. Here's each section of your permit and how it gets implemented in the Second Nature platform, and how those underlying technologies of the cloud and GIS support that entire effort. And that's why when you're clicking through the Second Nature platform, you see GIS is fundamental. It's completely integrated in the way that we think about taking that data from our previous topic and turning that into information that's operationally and performance oriented. And so those permit, Seth, as we look across all those permits across the country, we see a lot of commonalities, right? And we see them moving in similar directions. And I think that's what, you know, having a platform that exists in the cloud, I think that's a tremendous benefit to a program, is that, you know, the entire tool, the entire way of thinking is about how do we make that permit actionable and make it accountable and make it easy to understand and communicate around it.
Yeah, definitely. Is there, Jason, can I make a couple, I got, you know, Francis, I heard your dog barking there. I've got my own, I'm working from home and I've got a home situation that just came up, and I apologize. Can I make a quick closing statement, and then I'll hop off, and I apologize for that, but this is the world we live in, right? So you got to go with it. I think you're right. The permit's always the driver, right? And I think that basing what you're doing on, you know, meeting that with the platform, obviously, I mean, that works so well. And I think it's interesting. I wanted to mention the e-reporting, the electronic reporting rule that's been going on with EPA. We're hoping to maybe have a webinar with everybody to kind of focus on that a little bit more and how this all ties together. But that's something that if folks don't know about it, we can talk more about it later. But the point is that the world is going this way. So again, I wanted to kind of go back to say, hey, you know, you can't fight this tide. So you might as well embrace it, right? And by embracing it, we need to embrace it through the permit. That's really what it's about. But I will say, there's also going beyond that permit, which is, what about resiliency issues? What about other things that are social and economic? And of course, Esri's got layers and all sorts of stuff for this. And you know, and I mentioned the community-based P3 approach before. That's really the basis. And I know that you guys are really interested in all of this. And that baseline you talked about helps to set up that performance-based approach. Knowing where you are today is going to help you understand where you're going tomorrow. So, and it's all, but the underlying framework and the driver, it's about the permit. So, and as I close before I run down to deal with that, I got to deal with. I wanted to mention that when I was in grad school a million years ago at University of Maryland, I worked in the remote sensing lab. I could do Avenue coding. You'll know, Francis. And we worked on DEMs back in the day, and like it was cool. That was really rocket science back then, and today it's just everywhere. And it's so cool to see how things have developed over the years. I've always been a GIS guy, and I really appreciate everything that Second Nature has done and everything you guys are doing together. It's really helping us again make that putting our big boy pants on. As I said, I think it's awesome. So I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I got to go. It was great to hear about all of this from you guys. So I'll be happy to. If there's any other questions, I'll follow up. So thanks, guys.
Yeah,
thank you, Seth.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Seth.
And actually, and Seth paused himself. We'll see invisible Seth here for a while. Oh, there he goes.
There he goes.
So we've got a couple of minutes left, so maybe I'll just take and so just real quick, what we have here, and Francis, you've seen this before, and this is what Michelle and our customer success team help do, is they really take that fitness and then boil it down to a very defined, actionable plan, right? And then often, and what my last slide really is all about is about, okay, let's talk about where kind of the rubber hits the road, so to speak. Oftentimes, stormwater programs, again, big or small, they find themselves as they're thinking about, how do I make this real? How do I really do this in my program? It gets down to, can you help me understand what an architecture is going to look like? What are the integration points going to look like? Oftentimes, the stormwater program, even at the largest municipalities, not all the time, but oftentimes, we see that they really are not they don't usually even have a seat at the table when it comes to the underlying IT and GIS architecture of those municipalities. They're usually just a consumer for the most part. And part of what we're talking about here is we're talking about this shift includes getting a seat at that table, among other tables. To Seth's point, there's other very exciting tables, but part of making it real is saying, we're going to arm you, we're going to provide you with the language, the tools, the support from all of us to start to have a conversation, to articulate your requirements in the form of, here's what we need from this architecture to support this program. And so part of what this diagram shows then is we've gotten very good at understanding what are those architectures, what are the integration opportunities, and how do we work together with our partners at Esri to bring that conversation to life for our customers.
This really puts it into, I love the form you guys have put this in, because that data integration options kind of can take us to the start of that journey. And depending on where you want to start, you have a place for yourself, right? And depending on where you might be within your relationship with Esri, or contemplating something with Esri, we have a place in this space for it. I think when Seth was departing, it came down to make sure you focus, organize, and then you can communicate, right? Using that MS4 as that backdrop. So I really like what you guys have done here, but then although it's a little bit of a dense slide, it gives me that clarity on how I can go forward, really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is not meant to be a slide that we talk through in detail or anything like that, but just to say that, Esri with Second Nature, we've thought through this. We have the expertise. We bring the science and the stormwater expertise. Esri brings the GIS expertise. We collaborate at a very deep level from a technology standpoint on understanding these things. And so from a customer standpoint, we get it. We understand that this is a newer conversation, and that we want to support you to be able to be, not just be a consumer of services, but to be a driver of defining the requirements for the architecture and the underlying technology stack and what that looks like. And then I think that's it, and we're coming up on time. So unless you guys have any more comments on kind of just getting started, maybe we'll start moving to wrapping up. I mean, I want to turn it back over to Martinette to wrap it up. I want to thank Francis, you for joining, and Michelle, thank you for joining. And we're going to do more of these. I think we've recorded all of this, and we're going to be post-producing it and making it kind of consumable in bite-sized pieces. If anyone has any questions, please reach out.
Exactly.
Thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting me today and being a part of this. The other thing is, check out Second Nature's website. They have great customer case studies that really close that circle of trust that says, hey, you may not know us very well, but these customers have really gone through that process and taken that first step in saying, hey, my data might not be perfect, but I've got to not let perfect get in the way of better and start that process. So I think those case studies really do a great job of really facilitating that closing of the loop on real actionable outcomes for the customers and some great ROI. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Francis. You're so
Thanks,
welcome.
Francis.
All right, Martinette, it's all you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. That was really great. I have a final slide up here. You can request a demo through that link at the top. And then also, if you just want some more information on your specific permit for your region, take a look at these 4 different links. We've got landing pages for each of those with information pertaining to those specific regional permits. And then, of course, please drop any questions that you might have in chat. I haven't seen any questions. So if you don't have any questions right now, but you do want to reach out to us at some point in the future, please feel free to do so. We've got all our presenter emails here in the chat for you to use. I will also be following up with everyone early next week with some resources that you might find helpful related to the content that we discussed today. And so with that, I think we'll monitor the chat for maybe 2 more minutes, and then we'll call it.
Looks like someone just asked where we could find case studies and a white paper. I'll add links to those in the chat window, but they're both available on our website.
Exactly. I will be following up with you, everyone who joined today, with those resources as well. So you can expect those links in from me. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. That was really fun. And look out for an email from me early next week.
Martinette, thank you for your adult supervision. I promise you, Nellie was totally quiet for most of the afternoon. And of course, when I go on, I'm like,
Oh, Nelly.
That's great. All right, everyone.
oh, Nellie.
See you all very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.